was speaking with a guest recently that talked about that concept where a piece of video, like people look at it as in that must be the truth.
Yeah.
But without context, you don't know what the truth is. And yet, when you retweet it, it becomes almost the truth.
Yeah.
And then everyone interprets what they want.
Yes.
And then later, if you come back and say, oh, by the way, that was on the back of that, it's too late.
Well, do you remember that there was a famous picture from one of the Black Lives Matter protests in London where a black guy was carrying a white guy out of a crowd.
Yes.
After he was supposedly being beaten up.
Right.
Supposedly helping this guy who was somehow falling foul of this black criminality.
Okay. See, I thought that was real.
I think it's a real picture,
right,
but by looking at that picture at that moment, you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
All you know is that here's a guy carrying another guy out. Now, for all you know, he might be carrying him out to give him a good kicking on the ground once he's away from the police. You just don't know. Right. So it's really dangerous for people to just assume. And of course, the lefties all went with, oh, look at that. This shows you what's really going on here. The Black Lives Matter people are really nice people. Look, he's helping him.
Right.
And that may well be what was the case. But I mean, it might not be as well, you know?
How does this play out? And how come, 80% of the mainstream media seems to be kowtowing to this readership that wants to be spoon-fed back, and they virtue signal that we're on your side? Like, how does this play out? Because it can't sustain. I had George Farmer on here, who's Candace Owens' husband. His father's Baron Farmer. And he said, Brian, they're going to eat their own. He said, look at them now. They already eat their own. Like, you're not woke as me, and I'm going to cancel you because you're not.
Well, I mean, look what happened to J.K. Rowling. I mean, she was, until that moment when she said the wrong thing about a cervix and about a period or something, she was one of them. Now she's not. Now she's in the same camp as I am, and probably as you are. The evil, the criminal, the nasty, the ghastly, the horrible people who don't care about anyone, because everybody knows if you've got any kind of right-wing opinion at all, you just don't even care about people, which is another complete and utter myth.
But how is that even sustainable?
I know.
I mean, these are, we're reasonable people. I talk to reasonable people all the time that have views that are conservative or right-leaning or just not super woke, radical left Marxist views.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have them, but they can't say it. I mean, in America, you can't put a Trump hat on or you think you get a beat down.
Right.
And so it's become this
But this is why
thing.
polls have become so pointless, because people don't admit to which way they're actually going to vote.
Right.
The shy Tories, they used to call them. I mean, nobody predicted that 80-seat majority back in December. In fact, as I was about to come in to do the overnight show that night, because we were counting down from, when the polls closed at 10:30, we were going to be there till 6 a.m, and already the Sky and BBC were reporting what was looking like a Labour victory, because it looked like it was a Labour victory on Twitter. Right? And they were saying things like there's been a massive turnout in all these, funnily enough, all southwest London constituencies, which one they actually did win. And I was suddenly going into work thinking, Christ almighty, what if we get to the end of this show tonight and Jeremy Corbyn's the Prime Minister? And I started to feel quite depressed about it, and I was thinking, because the man is a complete and utter joke of an individual, never mind. He's grumpy, he's a communist, he hates people like me and you. He wants us all to behave in a particular way, which only he will advocate. And he's just, he would have been he would have been a nightmare in this situation, in the whole COVID situation.
So even you were co-opted by a media that got you thinking that for a second, even though it was never the case.
And of course it was never the case.
And you're smart enough to know better, and still it tricked you.
But still I'm thinking, what if they're right? What if they're right?
Right.
And of course the exit polling that was then done started to look like more actually of what reality was like. And we were hearing suddenly around about sort of just before 10, something like a Tory win, but nothing like the 80 seats that they ended up getting, because people just won't admit they voted for them. Because, I've spoken to people who tell me, they go to take their kids to school, they can't tell the other parents at the school gates that they voted Tory.
Right.
Because they'd be ostracised, and their kids would be ostracised, even worse.
Yeah.
And that's a really terrible place to be, I think.
But this can't last. And so my question is how much further does it have to go to the other side before it comes back? You mentioned Portland. We're seeing this crazy Chaz Chop City, let's defund the police, let's do it ourselves. And then in obvious, your socialism experience fails.
Right.
We see a lot of these things failing.
Right.
We see the Black Lives Matter protests where, bricks are all of a sudden on the side of the road, and it's been funded by George Soros.
Right.
Like, at one point, does the woke wake up?
Yeah, right. Well, I think when they grow up, perhaps, because I think part of the problem here is that it's the kind of youth movement. And I said to people when they started marching around in London, this won't last forever because most of these people have got a very short attention span.
Right.
You know, and most of them are pretty well off. They're not really struggling with anything. Most of them have been to university. There's the small kind of anarchistic types who are, you know, our sort of version of a pound shop Antifa. You know, because I mean, when you see the guys over there with guns, and sort of more or less militia type outfits
in America.
With
the earpieces.
Yeah, and you start to think, blimey. I mean,
well funded.
Yeah, very well funded.
A lot of money coming in.
A lot of guns. You know, a lot of very expensive guns. So there's definitely a point at which that madness doesn't cut through to the main body of the hall, if you know what I mean. You know, like
different than like in the 60s when you were going to get drafted, you were going to go to Vietnam and you were going to die.
Right.
So you were in for maybe the longer haul.
Right.
This, you see a trendy thing, I want to get out there, start some mayhem, but it's not going to last.
It's not going to last because actually there isn't...
That takes work.
Because there isn't actually an aim to it. I mean, I had a guy called Gary... is it Gary McFadden or Gary McLaren or somebody like that? One of the guys from the Black Lives Matter movement here, who came on and did an interview. And he said some really bizarre things. But when I said to him, you know, when does this end? What is the actual end point? What is your aim? He couldn't answer. Right. They don't really have an aim. Because just the kind of mealy-mouthed say, well, we want equality. And we go, well, what? You know, you have equality. What's the problem? You know, what is it that you can't do? You know, and of course, there might be some discrimination. There might be situations where people get discriminated against. I get discriminated against. I mean, what do you think would happen if I went to the BBC and said, can you give me a job, please? They'd go, no, you're white, you're middle-aged, you're heterosexual. Nearly said I was homosexual. I mean, you're heterosexual. We haven't got any openings for anyone like you. And that would be the truth.
Right.
Now,
try being an American in London. I get discriminated all the time.
Presumably.
Made fun of.
Right.
Sherman tank.
Yeah.
Septic tank.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's just life, okay? And, you know, of course...
we're gonna get roasted for this.
Two
men with white privilege.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Well, I've said this, I've started to say this now as a bit of a mantra that, you know, I did not think that in my 50s, you know, being a white heterosexual male would actually make me part of the counterculture. But that's how it feels. It feels like I'm kind of out there like some kind of rebellious Timothy Leary, you know, from the 60s.
If you're proud of yourself and proud to express yourself, then I guess you are part of the counterculture.
Well, I am, because most people are actually like me in terms of a lot of the views that I have in this country. Otherwise, we wouldn't have an 80-seat Tory majority.
Right.
You know, most people,
or the viewership you have,
and you know, ours are going up. The BBC's are going down. There's a reason for that. Trust in the BBC is at an all-time low. Trust in the media generally is at an all-time low. I mean, I'm doing a story this week, which was started up by Nigel Farage last week, about this company called Serco, who I'd never heard of, right, until this moment. These are the people who are being paid billions of pounds by the government to house illegal immigrants in hotels up and down the country.
Right.
Nobody's writing this. Nobody's doing the story. And the New European, which is actually run by a friend of mine, actually did a story against Farage's report saying, and I actually put a tweet out to them, I said, you know, actual newspapers are now criticising real journalism because they've forgotten how to do it. Because they don't go out anymore. They don't actually investigate anything. They just look and see what's on the internet and they write about it.
So see what's on Twitter and regurgitate it and give their spin on it.
And I mean, the number of stories I now read where saying something, you know, so-and-so caused outrage. They caused outrage and then they quote a few people on Twitter. It's like, that's not a story. They haven't caused any outrage. You've gone looking for something and you've sat in a chair and you've written it and it's crap.